Roddy and I are here to share some inspiration, some ideas, and even some lessons that we've learned for using technology to facilitate mobile and in-the-moment research. But to begin, what I'd like to do is take all of you kind of down a trip down memory lane. Now, seasoned colleagues on the phone, may get to roll their eyes at the story I'm about to share, and maybe some of those of you who are more recently arrived to the industry, hopefully this will make you laugh and be a fun juxtaposition between yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I started my career in customer and market insights years and years and years ago as a data analyst programmer. And one of my first exposures to this world of market research was with mall intercept paper surveys. So for those who aren't quite familiar with this process, I'd like to talk just a bit about it. Basically, we finalized a questionnaire content, and then a stack of several hundred printed paper surveys would be hand-delivered to the data collection vendor on location at a shopping mall. This vendor would then dispatch small armies of interviewers. These people had clipboards and pencils, and they would stop people in their tracks in the mall and say, "Hi, I'd like to ask you a few questions," and they'd ask them some demographic details and also their shopping habits and their experience. Now, each week, this quota-sorted pile of color-coded questionnaires, in this case for the project I'm calling up here, they were mint green. They'd be hand-delivered to my employer's office. I'd receive those questionnaires. My first job was to verify quotas were met, and then I'd number each questionnaire, and this was a really high-tech numbering process of taking a pen in the upper right-hand corner and putting a unique ID on each one of these pieces of paper. So then I'd hand key all of these surveys into a database template that I had prepared, and questionnaire by questionnaire, I'd punch these responses in. But in this specific survey project that I'm thinking about, I started running into names like John Deere, Betty Crocker, and literally David Lee Roth. I can still close my eyes and see these names in my head. What this meant to us was that data analysis and reporting were delayed for a week while we had to send the field workers out to collect additional completed surveys so that we could keep moving forward with this project. So once I loaded all this data file into this cross-tabulation program that I built a few weeks prior, I create these cross-tabs and these frequencies that became the fodder for an 80-slide management report that we compiled in PowerPoint. And when it was all said and done, we bound printed copies of these crosstabs and this PowerPoint report and FedEx them. And yes, that meant one of us drove down to a FedEx office, often late at night, found the last open facility so that we could deliver this gigantic report proudly to our client. Now, this was, remember, about a 2 to 3 week data collection and analysis process from start to close. And on kind of a funny side note, we had a very high-tech solution to what to do with all of these dead trees, these surveys, when they had reached the end of their usefulness. So after about 2 years of storage, we would sit down and hand shred expired surveys into a garbage can, since we didn't even have an electronic shredder, an electric shredder at that time, and then these would be tossed out in the garbage can. So to kind of recap what things had, back then, back in the day, we had one chance to speak to a consumer that we knew very little about, so little about that sometimes we'd even get a fake name, right? And there was really no way to follow up in any way with that consumer. We got one chance to talk to him or her, and then we were done. Data collection took at least 3 to 4 weeks. We planned for 3 to 4 weeks of data collection, and that was assuming that we didn't have John Deere, Betty Crocker, or David Lee Roth show up in our data set. These finished paper surveys were hand-delivered. I mean, can you just imagine how easy it would have been for these to get lost or destroyed? Just a pile of papers could, blow away getting out of the car. There was manual data entry into a data repository loaded into a separate analytics tool. So again, just being able to keep up on quotas, right, was a manual process. Or, hey, are we meeting a certain quota for this project? I don't know. Let me grab a pen and paper and tell you. And that all total from the first interview that was printed until that final big FUD report was delivered via FedEx, that was about a 2 to 3 month process. So, you know, as a young kid, as a junior researcher, sitting in my windowless office with my stacks of paper and the smell of printer toner, I wondered to myself, you know, is this the best way to do things? Are those opinions expressed the first week of March still pertinent when this report is delivered sometime in midsummer to these executives? But, you know, being young, just getting started, I said, you know, I'm working for some really smart people, so I guess at the end of the day, this must be just how it's done. And I put my head back down and got to work. I just assumed that there's a better way, then surely these smart people that I work for would find it. Well, here's the good news now. There is a better way to gather accurate data, generate rich insights, and to do all of this in a timely fashion. Today's technology takes us beyond, you know, those mint green mall questionnaires in a lot of ways. One of the key benefits to the technology available today is this ability to capture customers' opinions right in the moment, closer to the point of the purchase or the experience that they had with our companies, and with fewer recall issues. We're able to listen to customers while, for instance, they visit our store, while they use our products, not minutes, hours, days, or even weeks after that activity takes place. And we're not limited to the one static touch point, right? We don't just have that one place in time where we find that person in a mall, ask that person questions, and never see them again, but rather we can evaluate a customer experience dynamically. We can hear from an individual while they shop, while they cook, while they wait for us to provide a service, or even while they use our products, and basically we can check in with them now throughout their experience. And we even have multimedia options, photos, audio, video, things that we couldn't capture on a piece of paper with a pencil, right? But now a customer can send you a photo of your product in the store, for example, and this can add a new level of depth and richness to the customer insights while potentially increasing a level of accuracy. And let's not forget that when participants are providing feedback mobile and in the moment, right, it's going right into a reporting and analytics database. So we don't need that kid in the back office anymore hand-keying paper surveys in, but rather these answers are going right into the database for review, for analysis, for maintaining quotas and things. There's no more waiting a week for that stack of hand-delivered mint green forms. So what is making all of this possible? Well, quite simply, mobile technology is everywhere. Now, a few statistics, just here in the United States, we have about 317 million people, right? Roughly 150 million smartphones spread across about 117 million households. So that means that we have more than one smartphone in every household in the United States. And let's think about this worldwide now. In some senses, mobile ubiquity is even more staggering on a global basis, especially when we think of emerging economies, places where cellular service has completely leapfrogged landlines, right? They went from walking down the street to talk to someone to having a mobile phone in their pocket. So as an example, a few years ago, I visited Tanzania for a trip to the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro, which is the high point of Africa. And the staff working the mountain with us were very simple people from very simple villages. Many of them lived in single-room cinder block structures and wore very simple clothes, very simple gear on the mountain. So one evening at camp, above 13,000 feet in elevation, I smiled as I saw several workers crawling out onto rocks and enjoying the view. And I said to the head guide, I said, it's really cool to see the guys, you know, enjoying the scenery. They work so hard. And he laughed and said, you need to look closer. They're all on their phones calling home. And sure enough, I took a look, and every one of the workers on the side of this massive 19,341-foot volcano had a mobile phone pressed to its ear. So mobile really is everywhere. And the rate of adoption of mobile phones and mobile devices in general over the last 10 years represents one of the greatest innovations in technology in terms of global expansion and speed. And really, this is changing the way that we're doing research, right? We have toothbrushes now that use Bluetooth connections to talk to your mobile phone to remind you to brush and even record your brushing habits. So if I want to do a research study on toothbrushing habits, I don't even need to ask Jane about her brushing habits. Jane can download, she can send me the data that's on her device that tells me Jane brushes twice daily for 2 minutes at a time. So data collection today is truly in the moment, and it's important to know that mobile is an undeniable game changer for researchers like us. So now Roddy is going to share with you some real-life examples of mobile and in-the-moment research. So over to you, Roddy.
Thanks, Sarah. So what we wanted to do is really focus in on what we wanted to discuss today, because we could have chosen myriad examples of how we can use mobile for research, but really, we want to bring these together with 2 points. The first being how we use mobile to get closer to the point of experience, to allow us to capture better data. We'll give some examples of that. And then also how we combine it with media capture. Because this is when we think about mobile, oftentimes one of the first things that people think about is, you have a mobile phone, you can take a picture, you can take a video, you can use media. And this is, a lot of mobile research does have that element. So we wanted to use those 2 factors as sort of the unifiers for the case studies that we chose to go through today. Now, the first example that I want to give you is a study that we ran with a client of ours, and it was an in-home usage test. It was actually part of a broader study, but I'm just going to focus on the in-home usage test part here. And this client had been doing a lot of this work for years, going back to the paper surveys, as Sarah alluded to, through online, and now is making the transition to mobile. So what mobile allowed us to do is really expand this type of research to get richer insights and to do new and unique things. Where traditionally this work had been done, it would be shipped a product. They would complete a survey, initially on paper back in the day, more recently online, about their perceptions of the product, how did it taste, they would score things, etc. And then that data would be collected and submitted. Well, mobile allows us to do more here. It allows us to expand the objectives of what we wanted to do, not just understand how these perceptions of the product and how it was, how it fared with certain categories in terms of taste and texture and things like that, but it allowed us to understand the baking process. This was a product in the baked goods category. It allowed us to collect impressions of the finished product and also see them. And this was something that was really important for our client and allowed them to make better use of mobile. So we really used media here to bring things to life and to add depth to the research, and it's really core of what we wanted to do. So how do we use media here? Well, the first thing we did is we used it as for validation. So we had the participants take a photo of the product that they were to use. In this particular study, there were 5 different products. We wanted to make sure they had the right product. Almost everyone did. Not everyone did. We were able to weed these people out because they and not use their data because they had a product that was similar but not quite one that we were looking for. We also asked our participants to document the mixing process and what they were doing. Now, this is something that you could have asked them in the past. You could have asked people to sort of describe it or have an open-ended question or something like that. But we really wanted to see it when it was possible. And sort of as an aside here, this was a case where we had to work with our client on how to use media judiciously and how to use it well. One of the things I think our client was enamored with the fact that we could include media in what we were doing. So we're going to take a picture of the product. Let's also take a picture of the product before it gets mixed, and a video when it's mixing, and after it's done mixing. And while we're at it, let's take a picture of the pantry. Let's take a picture of someone's shoes when they're walking across the kitchen floor. So we really had to think about what do we actually need here. And then beyond that, we had to give really good guidance to the participants. Because if you can envision this, you're baking something, you're baking, a cake or brownies or whatever it is, and then you're trying to take a video. Well, if you're really stirring hard, you are using both hands, so how are you going to do that? Well, we had to give guidance to participants and say, hey, if there's someone else around, you can hand the phone to them, have them take a video of you. Also, if your phone has a phone stand, we had actually some really good videos where people would put their phone on the stand on the counter so you could actually see what they were doing. We were pretty impressed. People did that pretty well. But we made the video optional because we didn't want people to drop out of the study at this point. It was an important thing that we wanted to get in the data collection, but if it simply wasn't possible, it wasn't essential and something that would exclude someone from participation. So what we don't want to do is send participants out doing stupid human tricks that they can't do. So we want to guide them as much as possible and ask them to do reasonable things. Our clients also wanted to see what the finished product looked like, which is great because we got to see not just how it was mixed, and we got to see things that were really interesting. So how people adding additional ingredients and tweaking the recipe, for example. We were able to see when the product is actually finished, what does it look like? We got to understand how are complementary products used. If you were baking cake or brownies, again with that example, are they using frosting? How is something being frosted? And it was great really to see what the product looked like. Some people looked pretty good, some not so good. And that was great for us to see as well. And then we also had to think through the back-end coding and analysis. And this is a running theme through some of these case studies and points that we wanted to make today. And really, because we did collect a lot of media, we had to think through how are we going to go about coding this? What is this really going to be used for in terms of reporting? What do we want to really garner from this media data? And that was a challenge that we ended up meeting here, but certainly warranted for that as well. And let me jump to another example, which is an in-store study that we did. And a lot of the research that utilizes media is really trying to get close to the point of experience is in-store research. And this is just one example. In this one, we wanted to determine if the seasonal display was present in the store. If it was present, could someone find it? We also wanted to understand what people thought about the display and the products on offer here. This was a study that we did via our app and also with mobile web. I mean, someone could take the survey if they were part of our app panel or if they were part of our broader panel. It was a Confirmit survey that plugged in to our app, or they could do it as a standalone. So we utilized both methodologies here successfully. A little bit of a difference in the approach. We would send push notifications to people as reminders and utilize the functionalities within the native app. Or we would send email notifications that people were completing and they had enrolled via mobile web. But ultimately, the experience is quite similar, and the results were as well. Now, this particular study is interesting. It was a little bit challenging because we had limited locations to work with. It wasn't as simple as saying, I want you to go to any grocery store and go to the produce section, for example. Well, this one we had to send people to discrete stores. So we had to be very clear in terms of, this is the specific store that you need to go to, and we needed to validate that. And then the first thing that we did is we asked people to find this display in the store. We sent them to the proper category and the proper aisle, and we asked them, can you find the display? Well, sometimes these displays were here, and if you've ever done any work with displays in storage, compliance is never 100%. Sometimes the displays weren't there. Well, this is a problem, but it's also, an opportunity as well. This is something that the client wanted to really understand. They were a little bit more surprised, I think, than we were that some of these displays weren't here or done properly. But, what we needed to do as researchers is think about putting ourselves in the shoes of the participant. We sent them to the store. We were asking them to do this research about the display, which, becomes clear once we get them to the aisle, and then it's not there. Well, we certainly don't want to punish them. And if the display, in fact, isn't there, we're going to incentivize them properly for their time, even though they weren't really able to do the full research that we were hoping for. But we also want to make sure our bases are covered, and we want to be smart about this. So what we did in this particular instance is we asked people could they find it. If they couldn't find it, we sort of say, hey, are you sure? Here's a photo. This is what the display looks like. Now do you see it? I know it's supposed to be in the aisle, but is it maybe on the end cap? Do you see it anywhere? And sometimes people didn't see it initially. Sometimes the display wasn't actually in the right place. It was supposed to be an in-aisle display. Sometimes it was at the end, right by the end cap, and it was a bit hard to find. And then we asked the participants to take a photo of the display if it was there, or of where it's supposed to be if it wasn't there. So that allowed us to validate that, in fact, our participants went to the right store. The display wasn't there. We can share that data back with our client. And then this study went beyond just a mere audit. So, we did have them do sort of, audit-type exercises at the beginning. And then we asked them a few questions about their perceptions of the product, how it looked on the display, the perceptions of the product itself, where they consider purchasing it, a couple things, quick things about competitors. And we're able to tie that back to the data that we had used to enroll people in the study via a screener. And so it was really, with this particular study, the fact that we could get them in the right place, in the right time, and really utilize media, to validate the research and also to bring it to life, and really to allow our clients to see things from the eyes of the people actually shopping in the aisle. The next example that I want to go through is a study that the Confirmit team did, which is an interesting one that was all run within the app. And this was a longitudinal study. This is a study that went on for between 3 and 12 months and with a pretty big sample of 500 people. And the objective was to understand what it's like to quit smoking. That's one of the reasons why the tenure of a respondent differs. Sometimes maybe that's a quick process, oftentimes it's not. And they wanted to understand, what does it feel like? What does it feel like when you're craving a cigarette? What does it feel like if you're exposed to people smoking? What does it feel like if you're used to smoking in a certain place, work or a bar, wherever it is, and you can't smoke? And we really wanted to understand that. One of the things that I think is important here, and I will come back to this again, is this idea of getting close to the point of experience and eliminating problems of recall. I mean, I'm an example of one, but if you ask me what I did last week, without looking at my calendar, I'm not going to be much use. You ask me what I did yesterday, I might be okay, but you start to ask me specific things, and I, like most people, will start to misremember things, not intentionally. They'll start to conflate things. So if you ask, if you ask someone, over the past week, what was it like, describe your experiences quitting smoking, or give me an example of when you craved a cigarette. You may get okay data, but more likely than not, you're going to get people aggregating multiple experiences into one, generalizing, not providing, the type of rich data that we're really after here. So we wanted to get as many of these really short surveys completed that allowed us to get really close to understanding the people who are trying to quit smoking. And one of the ways to do that, which we implemented here, was to institute alarms or notifications within the app. So in the first 2 months, there were 4 times per day where the alarms were sort of randomized. We would ask people to check in. After 60 days, it was a little bit different. So there's an alarm in the morning, and then every 2 hours if they had completed the survey. So I had to walk a fine line here of not annoying people, but simply reminding them, and wanted to be really careful about engaging with people. The data was actually shared back with them, and their personal results were, so they really felt engaged in the study. But have to keep on top of people as well and remind them to participate, and not expect that they're going to just remember without any prodding on our end. And it was really, I think, through this method of consistent engagement, and also through a proper design and not asking too much. If you're asking someone to do something multiple times a day, then it's important that we're not asking too much time about that. And then another example that I want to go through is, and this is the last case study that I'll talk about, is one that we did, and we did it in the U.S. and also in China with a sample of 50 in each market. And this is a video-heavy study. And what our client really wanted to understand, and really on a qualitative level, was the relationship of a particular hair care product, and a little bit more broadly the category, but mostly this product, and how that related to perceptions of health and some related elements. And what was most important to them was being able to see and also hear directly from the participants, from the people who use this particular brand and product. And they want to get the data in the right place at the right time. And again, that's a theme that continues to pop up today and continues to pop up when you think about mobile research. So a few examples. If you wanted to ask people about what it feels like or felt like to use this product, I could ask people, a week after, a day after. But with someone's mobile device, I can ask them, after they get out of the shower, when, or just when they've gotten ready, within an hour or 30 minutes of when they've gotten a shower, to do a short video and to answer a few questions. I can ask them to walk through how they're storing these products and to talk about this product in comparison to other products. I can actually see what products they're using by having them do a short video in the right place, in their bathroom, or where these products are being stored. I can ask them to do a creative exercise about if they would change or design a similar product on their own. How would they do that? I actually get to see and hear from the participants. And with this study, what we got was great, and the client was very happy with it. The insights they were able to derive from these videos. But another thing that I keep saying is good design is important. It's about asking questions in the right way. It's about not asking too much from people. 6 videos is a lot. It's hard to ask someone to do 6 videos back to back to back to back. My participation rate is probably not going to be too great. So we allow people over between a week and 10 days to complete these videos when it was convenient for them and when the timing was right. We didn't want to force the experience. We gave them time. We kept the videos short. They were all under a minute. I really asked them to, with the exception of one, be under 30 seconds. And so we asked them to be concise, make sure they're in the right place at the right time, and what we got was really, great results. And then so, Sarah, after walking through these case studies, I can throw it back to you to talk a little bit about, start to talk about some evolving technologies around mobile and beacons and geofencing specifically.
Absolutely, Roddy. Thank you. So, Roddy shared with you some case studies. We want to talk a bit about the technology behind these solutions, what makes these solutions possible. Now, I do want to point out that some of these innovations are already widely implemented. Others that we're going to speak about are just scratching the surface of their potential. So, beacons and geofencing, what about these technologies? These are similar and complementary location-based technologies. They're both enabled by BLE, which stands for Bluetooth Low Energy Technology. They work essentially by exchanging data with enabled apps on your phone to find your location. So geofencing, think of this as geofencing forms a virtual perimeter around a defined space. So when a participant enters a defined geography, we can message him or her on their mobile device, inviting them to take a survey with us. So think of geofencing as kind of an area of interest. Beacons are essentially indoor GPS, allowing mobile apps to pinpoint a participant's location to within a few feet. So in terms of hardware, a beacon, it's smaller than a deck of cards, and it can be strategically placed maybe in a store, in a sporting arena, or in some other location where we want to conduct research. So since most of us on this webinar are familiar with flying, whether it's for work or for leisure, I'm going to illustrate beacons and geofencing using an airport analogy. So with beacons, imagine that a beacon is placed at the doorway of my airline's elite lounge. I enter the lounge, order a drink, and take a seat. And while plugging in my smartphone, I notice a little prompt inviting me to answer 3 quick questions about the lounge. That's beacons at work. Knew when I walked through the door, triggered a short invitation for me to provide some feedback. So what about geofencing? Well, with geofencing, we can trigger a survey when to use some industry jargon with you, when I break the fence or exit the fence, right? When I enter or leave an area. So maybe when I enter the general boarding area and when I leave the general boarding area. And we'd have a few options here. Maybe you want to ask me about some of the advertisements in the boarding area, not 3 days later, but right then and there when I'm in the boarding area with the advertisements right in front of my face. Another example is you could trigger a survey to me with timing such that it would arrive after I departed, right after my flight left. Well, I might just get that survey on the plane using airborne Wi-Fi, or I could also see this upon landing at my destination, right? And maybe I'm back in the exit row, and it's going to take a few minutes for me to get off the plane. I see that short survey pop up, inviting me to provide some feedback. And either way, me personally, you've got a captive audience. I'm bored, and I just might answer your survey for you. Now, it's important to note several things that I don't need to ask about my experience at the airport. You don't need to ask me when I entered the airport, for instance. You don't need to ask me necessarily how long I spent waiting in the gate area, and you don't need to ask me whether or not I visited the lounge, right? Because the technology answers these questions for you. Now, a lot of us, including me, we came of age in a customer and market research environment that assumed that surveys had to be dry as toast in order to generate reliable results. You can't do that. You can't add those colors. It's going to bias someone. Well, at the risk of launching a bit of a holy war with my fellow business intelligence professionals, I'm going to say that that's a bunch of baloney. I don't think that a respondent wants to fill in a few bubbles in a black and white screen any more than any one of us on this webinar wants to write a dreadfully boring survey. So there are several things that you can do to make your mobile survey, mobile interactions more engaging. You can use conversational language, like get rid of that stilted college textbook market research question talk. Keep surveys short. We've been saying this for years. It's especially true with mobile. Keep things concise. Ensure the content's pertinent to the participant to begin with, right? Make sure we're targeting the right people to answer our questions. But we've got technology available now to make survey taking fun while still ensuring solid and reliable results. So why not use it? Don't fall into the trap of thinking, okay, the survey is going to be presented on this tiny little mobile screen, so I've got to keep things simple. You may keep the content simple, but you can still have fun with it. When it comes to mobile and in-the-moment research, I like to remind folks, when you invite a participant to answer your survey on their mobile device, you're not competing with that mint green piece of paper that I talked about at the beginning of this call. You're competing with YouTube, Amazon, and Angry Birds, right? You can't afford to be boring. There's no need to torture your participants with plain boring surveys. Roddy?
Yeah, and so to Sarah's point, to piggyback on that, I think it's important to be engaging on mobile. I think it's also about giving the respondent a seamless experience across devices as well. So whether it's smartphone or tablet or PC, and trying to make that look and feel of the survey as cohesive as possible too. And then what I want to shift a little bit and talk about media negotiation, because that's a running theme here. Mobile is oftentimes about collecting videos and images. Poses a challenge. What are you going to do with 300 videos or 1,000 pictures of the bread aisle or 200 pictures of someone's pantry? The answer some of the times is a lot. The answer, unfortunately, sometimes can be a lot more if I had the time or if I had a good way to go through all of this media. And so I think this is still a challenge that we're facing as an industry. I will say, however, in the last 2 years, we've seen some providers really step up and provide some solutions for efficiently negotiating media, which has made this process a lot better and a lot smoother. But this is something that I think it's critical that we think about on the front end. What exactly do we need to collect? What are we going to do with that media on the back end? How long is it going to take? How much is it going to cost? Because we're all under time and cost constraints when we're talking about delivering research results. So it's really worth thinking about that in the design phase and planning for the back end and analysis phase. And you are getting a plethora of media that perhaps you're not used to with the quantitative surveys that you usually field. And then as we sort of wrap things up here, I want to try to hit on 3 high points that I think are worth emphasizing when we're thinking about mobile, and specifically this type of mobile research. And the first is about the experience for the participant. I think that mobile gives us an opportunity as researchers to put participants first. I also think that doesn't happen as much as it should. When you're writing a 45-minute survey that's full of big nasty grids, and asking someone to complete that. Should we be doing that? Maybe not, but do we often do it? Yes. Mobile gives us a chance to maybe correct some of those things and give a better experience to respondents. It's not all because we're nice researchers, but there are practical benefits to this as well. Conversion for studies that are designed well, that are engaging is higher. Retention of panelists is certainly higher when we're engaging them in a way that is positive for them. And we want to keep them interested in doing research because ultimately it's the participants from whom we're collecting the data that really do drive what we're doing. And along those lines, it's about collecting better data. In addition to getting more accurate data by getting close to the point of experience, which I've mentioned a couple of times, I think there are other benefits of engaging in smart mobile design. We see less dropouts when surveys are designed well. We have the ability to validate responses. But we also have the ability to collect more representative sample in many senses because, if we're not engaging people on mobile, there are certain people that we're missing, and that I think needs to be considered as well. And then ultimately, it's about richer data too. It's about using the capabilities of smartphones. What can they do? They can allow us to go places we can't normally go with research and collect data where we need to collect it. We can collect media, and it's about doing that smartly, and it's about doing that judiciously. But it's really about sort of using mobile when it's fit for purpose and in ways that can really generate richer insight. And then to sum things up, a few lessons learned to really hammer these points home. The first is really plan, and then plan, and then plan some more. When you're thinking about mobile research, either when you're thinking about some of these types of research or similar point of experience research and designing it from scratch, it's really worth thinking about it. Worth thinking about it a lot and thinking about it from the perspective of the participant. Put yourself in their shoes, in a store, in an aisle, trying to complete this research. Test when, even test in a live situation. It's a great experience to design a survey, have it on your phone, go into the store and then actually try to do it. You might find that something you're asking someone to do doesn't make sense, or maybe you need to give someone a little bit more guidance. So I think there's more planning and testing that's necessary, especially when this type of research is new. I'd also argue that this planning, when you're trying to port other types of research or other methodologies over to mobile, is critical. It's not a matter of taking a survey that you've typically done online and cutting the the LOI, or I'm going to cut out some of the questions, and then make it mobile friendly and make it something that someone can take in the store or in their home cooking or something like that. So it's really worth thinking, and it's really worth doing things right, and then reconceptualizing your research to make it mobile friendly when necessary. It's also about engaging people at the right time, avoiding some of these flaws of memory. I think we can get more with less. We can we can have multiple engagements if we need to. If what we really want to ask someone about is how are you planning your trip to the store? What are you looking at when you're in this particular aisle? How are you consuming this product? What's the occasion? I could do all of that in a survey after the fact, or I could get more with less and and conduct 3 short surveys, getting close to the point of experience each time, and that oftentimes is the right solution. And then to hammer this point home again about judicious media usage, it's about getting the right videos, the right photos that we need at the right time. It's not about getting as many videos as we can. Here again is a case where I think we can do less with more.
Great. And as researchers, we've got to make our engagement short and not ask too much of the respondent. This goes for any research channel, any data collection channel, but it's definitely the case within the moment and with mobile research when you're potentially intercepting someone to participate in your study, right there in the middle of an airport or in a shopping mall or in a store. We've got to be concise. It's especially important to prioritize questions and prioritize the requests that you're making of your participants. You need to focus on the need-to-haves, because with mobile and in the moment, there is no space for nice-to-haves. You can't tack that extra question on that marketing or sales would like. There's no space for it. We've also got to have the discipline to resist the temptation to corner a willing participant once we find one, right? Over-inviting them, demanding too much during a single engagement. We've got to be careful not to wear out our welcome when we do have a cooperative participant. So as with any mode of research, in the moment in mobile research, it's very critical that we learn to do more with less. So I want to thank you all for joining Roddy and me today. Dina, I believe we have some time for a few questions.
Yes, we do, and we actually have quite a bit of questions coming in. So I'll just get right into it. What is the ideal length of interview using mobile research, mobile interviews?
I'll take that one. And first I'll give the typical response, and then I'll qualify it. It depends, which is not a very satisfying response. But this is why I say that. I think oftentimes people say a mobile survey should be 5 minutes or less, or it needs to be 10 minutes or less, or no one's going to take a survey that's longer than 15 minutes. I think shorter is better. If I'm forced to put a sort of a stake in the ground, I'd say 10 minutes is a pretty good rule of thumb. but it really depends on the context. Even 10 minutes, in the store can be a long time. But if you set the expectation with the respondent and you let them know this interview is going to take, 10 to 15 minutes, and this is what we're going to ask you to do. We're going to ask you to go to a certain section of the store. We're going to ask you to take a photo. Maybe we're going to ask you to take a short video. Let them know what the expectation is beforehand, and you're not going to see some of these adverse effects you can have if you surprise someone with a longer interview. So I think that good design can make up for length in certain aspects as well. So I think length is one of the things that we need to think about. It's not the be-all and end-all. I think that a lot of times we can get caught up in length and think just because I made my survey shorter means it's mobile friendly. And while I think that's a step in the right direction, I think there are other things such as good design that really play a key factor there.
Thank you, Roddy. Actually, I think that's a good segue into the next question. How do I know if my survey works on a mobile phone?
I can go ahead and take that one. So it sounds like the question refers to what we would call mobile optimized. Is your survey mobile optimized? So on a really nitty-gritty kind of technical level, mobile optimization, it can mean a lot of things to a program or on a technology level that I don't want to get into here. But for business intelligence professionals, one of the first things that needs to happen when a participant starts to take one of our surveys is that the technology needs to be able to read what type of device is being able to use or is being used to open the survey, and then we're able to say, is the survey able to render correctly on a mobile device? So you might find that your survey should look similar but not identical if you open it side by side on your laptop versus on your mobile phone. A mobile optimized survey it's going to make use of the phone's interface. So for instance, all of the content should fit in one view, right? No one should have to scroll up and down a view on their phone in order to take your survey. And it's also going to use things like thumb wheel response selection, right, as you might use on your iPhone, for example. So if you've ever had the chance to compare maybe just a mobile optimized website on your phone to what they might call the full site for a company, you can feel a bit of the difference there between a mobile optimized survey and one that is not. Basically, a survey that's ready for mobile should look more like an app and less like a bad browser window. If you want to know if you have some surveys out there today that your company is fielding and you need to determine are these ready for mobile, the two easiest ways to do that, one is ask your vendor. They should have the answer right away. Yes, that's mobile optimized. No, it's not. And then, of course, you could always test the survey yourself on your mobile, maybe even side by side on your laptop with your mobile and see how it presents. And if it feels kludgy, if it doesn't render well, if it's difficult to navigate, it's probably not mobile optimized.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Have you come across any privacy issues and or noticed that respondents skew towards a specific mindset?
Yeah, I can take that, but could you repeat the last part of the question? Sorry, I heard that have you come across any privacy issues, but after that, what was the last part?
And then the other part was, and or have you noticed that respondents skew towards a specific mindset?
Skew towards a specific mindset. I'm not sure what that actually means, but I'll take the first part of the question since I understand that. I mean, there are privacy concerns, I think, and we need to be careful about what we're asking people to do, and that differs depending on where you're located. If you're in the U.S. or if you're in Europe or other places, there are different restrictions on what's considered personally identifiable information and how that should be treated. So we need to think about all those things before we collect. We need to be especially careful if we're asking someone to take a video of themselves and there is a photo or of others. We typically don't ask people to do that, take a picture of someone else. But if we do ask someone to take a picture or a video of themselves, we need to have specific opt-in from them let them know exactly what the photo is going to be used for and how we're going to use it in order to be in compliance with, CASRO and SMR research standards. So there are some concerns, and we need to be careful about those and make sure that, our bases are covered, not just so we're morally and ethically and legally above ground, but also, we're doing the right thing for the participant. I don't think that people always think about what's going to happen when they give us data, and I think, we need to be transparent with them and let them know what's going to happen to their photo and how their data is going to be managed after, they're kind enough to give it to us. I think that, that responsibility is on us as an industry.
Does mobile research technology reduce dropout rates?
I can take that or at least start. So we can use mobile and in-the-moment research technology to build engaging surveys that happen at the right time in the customer experience, right? So a part of reducing the dropout is contacting the participant at the right time, right? While they're engaged with your product or while they're looking at your advertisement, right? So the experience is recent or it's actually still happening. We can make fun and engaging surveys. That one slide that I presented. You're competing with Angry Birds. Do you want your survey respondent to play Angry Bird or answer your survey? Because if we're putting out a plain, boring, a black and white, very DOS-looking survey, they're going to opt for Angry Birds, right? We want the survey to be short. We want it to be fun and engaging. And I guess another way that you can consider mobile and in the moment a way to reduce survey drop-off would be, are we hitting the right target respondent with mobile? There may be certain respondents, maybe think of banking customers, the customer that still goes in to the branch to have their banking done. That may not be the person that you want to trigger a mobile survey to, right? But maybe the on-the-go professional using your mobile banking app, that's the person who you want to be able to trigger a nice mobile survey to. So I think by targeting the experience at the right time, by targeting the right respondent, and by building an engaging mobile survey, you can use mobile technology to keep surveying fun and to reduce dropout.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that just a few additional points. If we're thinking about dropout just on mobile versus desktop for standard online surveys where someone happens to choose and come in on a mobile device, the dropout rate is definitely higher. Especially when surveys are not designed well for mobile, you're definitely going to see higher dropout. But in these types of examples that we gave today, where we have participants who are highly engaged with what we're doing, the proper expectations have been set with them. Once we get someone to start that survey, the dropout rate is really, really low. When we have someone at the store, we told them what we're going to do, we're asking them to do certain things. Once they get started, for the vast majority of those people are sticking with us. So this type of research, once we get people to get started, we really have a high degree of success with keeping them around.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. What are some of the solutions that you mentioned for managing and negotiating media more efficiently?
Yeah, there are a few. I think that I don't want to give a plug for anyone particularly. You can send me an email as an aside. I'd be happy to discuss some things specifically. But I think that solution providers and programming platforms, Confirmit being one of them, gives a way to access photos via a portal and do that. I mean, in the olden days, which wasn't really that long ago, just a few years ago, what we'd have to do is download all of these photos and sort them and tag them and try to figure out how we're going to run through them. Online, technologies, or online portals have allowed, us to do better at that. There are some third-party solution providers as well that have tried to integrate media negotiation just in terms of negotiating and self-tagging, also with coding and integrating survey data so you can see that, and at the same time you can see images. Sometimes crowdsourcing coding of the open end. So there are a few options out there, both on the platform side and then third-party provider side as well.
Okay. Well, Sarah and Roddy, thank you both so much for your time today and for this webinar. And all of our attendees, thank you for joining. As a reminder, the webcast was recorded and will be available to all of our attendees. I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.